been maybe in an odd pastorate, maybe the oddest month that I've ever had. There's been half of us here each week of this month, but it's been a different half every month or every week, and we're still, depleted this morning. So many people right now, more than COVID, have the flu. And of course, we've had those that have had losses in their families in the last few weeks, and so we haven't been together in any substantial way throughout the whole month of January. And I had set aside January, I wholeheartedly believe by the leading of the Spirit, to call us to action as individuals and as a church, to apply ourselves in the way that God has gifted us, the way that God has called us, the way that God has redeemed us. And yet we've been a different group for the most part each week of this month. And so what I want to do today is basically re-preach the last 5 sermons as quickly as I can. I disparaged Lori's name last week. 2 weeks ago, during my pastoral prayer, I asked God to make me efficient with my words and succinct with my message. And then I proceeded to preach for 2 minutes less than 1 hour. And I heard someone say, well, that prayer wasn't answered. And I blamed Lori. And then I found out that it wasn't her. But then Lori showed her true spirituality last week when I preached for 33 minutes. And she said, well, prayer doesn't always come to fruition immediately. And so for Lori's benefit, and hopefully for mine and all of ours, I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can this morning and get to the point. It's more of a call to action than anything else. And not just a call to action, it is a call to greatness. This is what God wants from us. He doesn't want us to be common people. He doesn't even want us to be common Christians. He calls us to greatness. Now, his definition of greatness is different than the world's, right? But it is true greatness, lasting greatness, effective greatness, loving greatness. And these are the passages that we've looked at over the past few weeks. That first one is a call for a renewed mind. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to the Lord, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And then from that point on, he talks about our giftedness and using it. And by the using of that gift, the last verse of chapter 12, that we might overcome evil with good. Now, we all know that verse, and probably all of us could quote it along with myself. And yet, what does it mean to have a transformed mind? I think it means exactly what we've been looking at through this whole month of January. It is to see the greatness of God. Sometimes in our mere existence in this world, and we see all of the trouble, we see all of the darkness, both corporate and individual. Whenever we see it in our community and beyond our community in the world, we see all of the difficulty and the trial and the chaos and confusion, and then anger and hatred expressed. We can lose sight of the fact that God is, and God is great. And not only is God great, but God is at work in everything. And He has provided everything that we need for life and godliness. He desires for us to have life and to have it abundantly. John 10:10, the thief comes not but for to kill and to steal and to destroy. And we see that constantly. But our minds are transformed when we see the second part of that verse. But I have come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. And so our transformed mind is when we see the greatness of God. And then we never stop. We never get satisfied with a vision of greatness. We keep going on, and we look for the greaterness of God, and the greaterness of God, and the greaterness of God, and the greaterness of God. And then the second part of that transformed mind, which is very evident in Romans chapter 12, is we see the greatness that He calls us to. If any man would be my disciple, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Right? To serve Him, to reveal Him in life, in word, in deed, in emotion, in expression, in our aid to our fellow brothers and sisters, and then beyond that, patience and hope and prayer for even those who would call themselves our enemies. And so you have that transformed mind, seeing the greatness of God, and secondly, the greatness that He calls us to. And then, in Romans chapter 16, verse number 20, we looked at this passage of what He will do with those who see the greatness of God and who have submitted themselves to His definition of discipleship, denying self, following Him, becoming the people that He has called us to. In Romans chapter 16, verse number 20, and the God of peace, when we see His greatness in the midst of all of that chaos and trouble, when we see His greatness, that provides us peace. And the God of peace will destroy Satan quickly under our feet. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. He longs to use His transformed disciples to crush the work of Satan, especially in the lives of others. Oppression, addiction, sorrow, directionlessness, even walking death. It is the truth that sets men free, and it is the truth by the indwelling Holy Spirit that we can understand. A truth that may be foolishness to those who do not know God, but a truth nonetheless that provides us with life and a place at the table to feast from the fruits of the Spirit of peace and love and joy and kindness and gentleness and meekness and temperance and self-control. And it is by that truth heard that faith comes. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. So He calls us to be transformed, first in our minds and then the expression of our giftedness. And then He promises us that our work will not be in vain. He will use our feet to crush the oppression and the imprisonment of men under our feet. And then we looked at Job 19, where we see Job in the midst of all of his trouble, his eyes are taken away from God. His eyes are taken away from the greatness of God, and all he can see is trouble, and therefore his mind is overwhelmed by his opinion rather than truth. And he says there in Job 19:21 through 25, he says, I long that my words were written in a rock, that they were carved in a rock with an iron needle and filled with lead, trouble and difficulty. That is the way of man. And we saw that God does not want Job's words or our opinion written in the rock. What matters is what God writes in the rock, what he carves in the rock. First, the rock that is Christ, that becomes the chief cornerstone of the church, the living stone that protects us in all of our movements and machinations upon the earth. And then he calls us to be living stones, to be built up as a habitation for God on the earth. And then he will write our new name on a white stone and give it to us to show his loving care for us. And then he will carve his name into us, that we might become a pillar upon which all falsehood, all untruth, all oppressive error in the world might break against us, as we as the church become the pillar and the ground of truth, of hope in this world. So he calls us to transformed minds, transformed lives, using his giftedness, that he might use to crush the oppression and the imprisonment of men and women through error in the world, as we live not by our opinion but by his truth. He gives us an illustration of this in Matthew chapter 16, verses 16 through 22, whenever he changes the name of Peter. Whenever he said, he changes the name of Simon, pardon me. Whenever he asks him, "Who am I to men?" or "Who do men say that I am?" Some say that you are Elijah. Some say that you are Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Wait a minute. Some say that you are John the Baptist. Some say that you are Elijah. Some say that you are Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And then he looks at Peter and he says, "But who am I to you? Who do you say that I am?" And Peter answers, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus then changes his name. He gives us that picture he gives us a visible expression of what invisibly is taking place in our lives. "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you." This is not the opinion of man or even your own opinion. "But this has been given to you by my Father who is in heaven." This is truth. And when we listen to God, we become strong. "Therefore I no longer call you Simon, but Peter. And upon this rock," Peter meaning stone, "upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I shall give you the keys of the kingdom, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." And so we see the progression there. We are transformed by the renewing of our minds as we see the greatness of God, as we understand the greatness that he calls us to, and what we must do in order to fulfill that greatness, to humbly serve him in the way and the giftedness that he's given us. And then when we do that, he will crush the oppression that Satan has overwhelmed, has darkened this world with, as we live not by our opinion, but by his truth. And gates and keys speak of the continuing work of Christ. He has come to set the prisoners free. Gates are not offensive weapons, right? You don't have, the cavalry, the horse soldiers. Cavalry?
No.
Cavalry.
Yes.
Cavalry.
No.
Horse soldiers. The infantry, and then the guys who carry the gates. Gates are for holding things in or for letting things out. And it's plural, gates, and we are given plural keys to lock up error and to release truth, to set the prisoners free by the redemptive work and words of God himself. And then in Revelation chapter 2, verse number 17, he lets us know that he doesn't just call us to this task, he is with us the whole time. We are given a new name just as Peter was. Right? We are given a name that is equivalent to our giftedness and the expression of our giftedness. God is intimately involved in our lives. He doesn't just give us a task and send us out. He is with us. He cares for us. He knows every sparrow that falls, every hair on our heads, and he knows us even more intimately than that. I am never alone. He'll never leave me nor forsake me. That's the negative. I am with you always. That is the positive. And he's not just with us, he cares so much about us that he has a new name for us. Now, our goal is to live up to that new name. Going back to Matthew chapter number 16, right after Jesus calls or changes Simon, son of Jonah's name, to Peter, and tells him that you have the keys to the gates, and what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and what you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. He then tells them that he must go to Jerusalem, verse 21, and be mistreated and be taken by evil hands of men and be beaten and bruised and ultimately crucified. And you remember that Peter says, no, that's not what we want. Not so, Lord. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. For you have become a hindrance or a rock of stumbling to me. For your mind is set upon the things of men rather than the things of God. And so that circles us back all the way to Romans chapter 12, right? That renewed mind. That we live in that renewed mind, we understand that giftedness, we apply ourselves to it, and God will use us to crush Satan under our feet shortly. How long does it take for a man to be saved? That fast. Hearing the truth. How long does it take for someone who is without peace to find peace? How long for someone who has no hope to find hope? Someone who has no direction to find direction? How long does it take for light to light the darkness? It's all soon. It's all immediate. But we must keep our mind on the things of God rather than the things of men. In one moment, Peter is a rock upon which he could build his church. In the next moment, he is a stone of stumbling. And it is all dependent upon where his mind is, where his determination is derives from, and where it flows from. And so he gives us that great passage in Revelation chapter 2, verse number 17, where he says, I will write your name on a white stone that I will give to you that no man knows. Just that special relationship that God has not only with us, but with every individual one of us. That is astounding to me. That God has nothing better to do in this universe than to love me every moment of every second, of every minute, of every hour, of every day, of every lustrum, of every decade. Lustrum, if y'all have ever watched Rooster Cogburn, y'all know that's 5 years. Of my entire life. That is astounding to me. And then we come to Revelation chapter 3, verse number 12, where he tells us that not only will he give us a name that no one else knows, that special name that speaks of the bond that we have, but that he will make us a pillar in the temple of our God, and he will write on himself, or on us, his own name. God is not ashamed in any way to say, Jeff Mull is mine. Sandy Ward is mine. Logan Young is mine. Rex Runyon is mine. I will put my name, I will carve it right in a pillar. That those who are shaken and fearful of the ever-changing winds and sands of this world might know a place that they can run to that is solid, where they can find the truth that will give them surety and a sure foot. Not only will I put my name there, I'll put my address there. I'll put the city of my God there, where I can be found. If you want to know where I can be found, it's in Christian Bouzas. It's in Jana Mull. It's in Robbie Davis. It's in Charles Theobald. And in the loving person known as Lori Martin. And not only that, I'll put the name of the Redeemer. And my own son's name. They are who they are because of what my son has done. And his work is good and perfect. And nothing shall could snatch us from his clutch, from his grasp. That all sounds easy, right? Be transformed in your mind. See the work of Satan crushed in the people's lives around us. And then we all go forward in light and life. Well, there's a struggle. Now, after all of these weeks, speaking about Satan being crushed under our feet, the ongoing call for greatness in our lives, right? The ongoing call to greatness in our lives. We may think that there's a struggle going on between good and evil, between God and Satan. But that is by no means the case. There is no fight at all between God and Satan. I mean, there's no fight. God is God. And Satan is not. And if he can use our feet to crush him, right, he just with a thought completely expels and expunges Satan. When we see that final battle of Armageddon, when Satan gathers all of his forces together, there's really no battle at all. God just shows up and they're destroyed. Right? He doesn't even do anything. Just he says a word and they're gone. I mean, that battle is even less than if I were to stand out against a freight train going full speed with my little stick going to stop it. What's going to happen? I'm not even going to be a greasy spot. Right? And that is a poor illustration of the expression of power between God and Satan. No, The struggle is not between good and evil, between God and Satan. The struggle is between Bill and Bill. It's an internal struggle. Will I believe or will I not? Will I love or will I not? Do I care or do I not? Am I play acting or am I ready to take the stage for real? You see, the struggle is not out there or up there or in the ethereal mists. The struggle is all right here. Whether my mind is being conformed or transformed. So what we need is a motivation, right? We need a motivator. Listen, it's not motivation from another that we need. That's a false work, a temporary work. You know, I've thought about trying to be manipulative, I guess, for the lack of a better word. I know there's got to be a better word than that. You know, try to stir us up to action, you know, quote, to arms, you know. I regret that I have but one life to give, you know, all of those great speeches in the past. But being motivated by another is or needing or waiting for motivation for another, that's a false temporary work. It will only last so long unless we're committed to the task. Really, it's a way to blame another for our own lack of commitment. Discipline is the true answer. It's not so much motivation, it's discipline. And y'all know that. I mean, I can only give an illustration from my life, but you have your own. Sometimes I don't feel like sitting down and studying. But you know what I find every time that I sit down and study? I'm glad I did. I then begin to enjoy it, and I'm transformed by it and empowered by it, and especially when I see those things I haven't seen before, or reminded of those things that somehow I forgot. It's not so much motivation we need, it's the discipline we need. Truth. We have all the motivation we could possibly need. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. I go prepare a place for you, that where I am you may be also. I mean, that's motivation, man. I am not ashamed to call you brother. I will emblazon my name upon you, and nothing shall snatch you out of my hand. Not trial or tribulation, nor nakedness, nor peril, nor sword, nor any other created thing shall separate us from the love of God. You see, the truth of God is the motivation that we need. What we need to be, and what we've been leading everything up to, is we need to be the church at Philadelphia. And to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write the words of the Holy One, the true one, who has the key of David, who opens that no one shall shut, and who shuts and no one opens. We talked about most of that last week. But the Holy One, the true one, the Holy One, he is God. Jesus is God, right? And he is unchanging. He's immutable. If ever he loved me, he loves me now, and he will always love me. If ever he sat upon the throne, he sits upon the throne and will always sit upon the throne. If ever he does good, he always does good. He is God. He's the perfect. His character is pure. He's wholly good. There's nothing evil in his character. He's the Holy One. He's the true one. It reminds us that he never lies, and all of his promises remain and will be fulfilled. John writes that Jesus came full of grace and truth. And here's the sad reality, and this is one of those things that we must crush under our feet. He came full of grace and truth. The world does not care, nor do they like that he came in grace and truth, because they do not think they need the one, grace. Greg and our whole Sunday school class were talking about this just a little while ago. The hardest thing in evangelism is to convince people that they need to be saved, that they are bad. You see, they think that they don't need grace, and they think that they already have truth. And they are the arbiters of truth. They are the fountain of truth. But here it tells us that Christ is not just holy in truth. He declares that he is the holy. He is the truth. Everything that is holy and true comes from him, and nothing can be holy or true except it come by relationship from him. And then secondly, I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power, but you have kept my word and have not denied my name. Perhaps the church at Philadelphia considered itself weak. They didn't have the greatest resources. They didn't have the greatest numbers. They didn't have the greatest position. Perhaps they complained that they had little power. Perhaps they thought that other churches were bigger and could do the work better than them. But that's not Christ's opinion about them. He knew that the Christians at Philadelphia loved the Word, obeyed the Word, believed the Word, that they were loyal to him, and in that he saw power. Where we sometimes don't see it, but the very fact that we gather and worship, that we believe the Word, that our worship is surrounded by the Word, that's the main focus of it, that gives us immense power. So much so, he says, I will give you an open door that no one is able to shut. Now the question is, will we walk out that door and do what God has called us to? Behold, I make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, that they will learn that I have loved you. You want to know how powerful God has made us? You want to know how powerful that belief in the Word is, and then the expression of that Word, and then the carrying of that Word through the open door? You can take those who have even left the church, who have completely denied everything about the church, who have denied everything about the truth, and see them converted. That is amazing. That is an amazing statement of power right there, verse number 9. Right? Make those of the synagogue of Satan. Apparently they were part of the church at one time, and now they have completely left everything about it. And those are the hardest people in the world to see come back to the truth. And yet he says, this is what I will do. This is how great that power is. They have left everything. They have taken the name of the accuser. They sit in accusation against God, against the Bible, against the people of the church. They sit in derision against the church. The people that you think would be most unlikely to be saved. And I'll bring them back and cause them to bow down and know that I've loved you and still love them. There's an amazing thing, especially for those of us who know people like that. And I think we all do. Know someone who has once loved God and no longer find that love, in fact, find a hatred for it. Here's great hope. And in that hope is an incredible expression of power. And why will this happen? Because you have kept my word in patient endurance. Now, we don't like those words, do we? We want, you've kept my word in immediate action. Right? But he says, just keep believing. Keep believing, keep walking through that door, keep revealing God in patient endurance. And I will keep you from the trial that is coming on the whole world and to try those who dwell upon the earth. Christ never tells us that he will keep us safe from all troubles. He tells us he will keep us safe in the midst of troubles. In this world you will have trouble, he says in John 16:33. But one day we will be free from all troubles. When we are taken from this world to the next, when we meet that last enemy, death, and we find he's not an enemy, but the one who ushers us into a world without pain, without sorrow, without tears, without separation, without uncertainty, without chaos. Right? And so you're seeing incredible power expressed here. I'm coming soon. Hold fast to what you have, that no one sees your crown. Christ spoke these words at a time when trouble would soon come on the world, but it's a message of hope. I will come soon, even if it's just in our lifetime. What is 70, 80, 90 years, 100 years in relationship to eternity? It's nothing. It's soon. In a couple of weeks, Vicki and I will have been married 30 years and 112 pounds. Doesn't seem like it. Seems like not long ago I was wondering if she would say yes if I even asked her out. I look back at my life and it seems like that it's passed as quickly as the vapor off of a cup of coffee. And one day I'll be moved in a place where time is no more. Where the joy of the moment is the joy of eternity. It's an awesome thought. The troubles that we suffer, the difficulties that we suffer, the things that we have to give up in order to serve him, they are not without end. Christ will come and rescue us. Christ will come and use our work to see those who have wandered away, maybe even into accusation, returned. And there is a wonderful reward for our loyalty and our action. And you see it in verse number 12. I don't have to go over it again. What a beautiful verse. To the one who conquers. To the one who can get past the conformity of this world, the fear of service, the selfishness of a lack of service. To the one who conquers, I will make him a pillar in the temple of my God. Never shall he go out of it. I will write on him the name of my God and the city of my God, the new Jerusalem which comes down out of heaven, and my own new name. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This is the sermon. You've seen it from Romans 12 through Romans 16. You've seen the error of Job, then the possibility and the error in Matthew 16 with the renaming of Simon, and what he calls us to, and the opportunity and the reward in Revelation 2 and 3. Now the question is, what will we do about it? It is time that we stop dilly-dallying around. I don't know what dilly-dallying means, but it's time we stop it. It is time that we set our feet on the pillar and the foundation of truth. And then to move our feet in following Him, because you can't crush anything under your feet unless they're what? If I'm standing like this, standing firm in Christ, what can I crush under my feet? Nothing. Because nothing can get under them. But whenever I'm following Him, then and only then can I see that work take place. A little bit of a guided invitation today. If you're not yet a Christian, don't wait another moment. Now is the time. Today is the day. Quit letting anything else hold you back. Let not embarrassment or whatever, I don't know what it is. Right? We always think that we have tomorrow, but tomorrow is not guaranteed to us. Neither is the call of the Spirit tomorrow. Let he who has an ear hear what the Spirit says to the church. If he is telling you right now that you're not saved, you're not sure that you're saved, come in 2 minutes to settle that once for all. Maybe you're not yet a witness. Maybe you're saved. You've sat in the pew over the past couple of years and you've prayed, God save me. Maybe you were at home and you prayed, God save me, but you've not yet expressed that openly to the church and to the world. Come now and publicly declare your allegiance to Christ. Maybe your worship, your desire for it, or your service to the church has waned. You found excuses or whatever, right? Now is the time to renew ourselves in our commitment to serve Him, to serve one another, to make us the best that we can be as you yourself strive for greatness in using the giftedness of the Spirit. Working together with Him, then, we appeal to you not to receive the grace of God in vain. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse number 1. For he says, in a favorable time I listened to you. In a day of salvation I have helped you. Behold, now is the favorable time. Behold, today is the day of salvation. We put no obstacle in any man's way, so that no fault may be found in our ministry. He who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to you in this moment right now. Father, I thank you.